Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Juliette Beauchamp and I'm here as always with Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon, as well as Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus. We are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so if while you're watching you have any questions, comments, or you want to add to our topic of discussion for the day, which is Apple's worst products or biggest fails of all time, please do let us know. I think we'll definitely be interested to hear what your opinion is on some of Apple's worst products in your view. So please do leave a comment. And with that, let's dive into it. So the catalyst for this discussion, first off, Macworld article, detailing the 10 worst Apple products of all time. And Michael, you sent it to us and I looked at it and said, oh my God, I used one of these things this past weekend and it was a genuinely horrible experience. And it was the Siri Apple TV remote. I had never used one before. I was visiting my family. We were at an Airbnb in upstate New York, and there was an Apple TV, and I was trying to set it up for my family so my family could watch the Final Four, and it was horrible. I could not figure out how to use it.
I'm a little jealous that you haven't used one until just now.
I don't have an Apple TV.
Yeah, you've lucked up, Juliette. We've all been torturing ourselves for years with this thing. I did bring my prop because I have to agree. This is try doing something with this in a dark room while you're watching a movie or a game or anything.
What's unfortunate about it is it looks really cool and like the intent is excellent. It's not what people need. That's not what you're looking for in a remote. You want something that you can pick up, use in the dark, as you say, without looking down to see if you're holding it the right way. You don't want it to, like when you're using that trackpad to go three spaces too far, 2 spaces too back. You need precision controls, and you don't want to be holding it for more than you have to. And Apple, the Apple TV remote, it does all of those things. You have to spend way too much time with it to do simple tasks.
I would argue that the fatal flaw with this remote is the fact that when you pick it up, you can't tell if you're holding it the right way. Because at that point, you've already lost. You're flipping it around. You're hitting the wrong button.
And Apple's solution to that was to put a little white ring around the menu button, but you have to look at it.
Well, if the white ring glowed in some way in the dark, maybe that would be helpful. But
yeah, it's not. There are ways to do a super simple, super thin, elegant remote that still allows you to use it easily.
Isn't the assumption that that's coming this year? I mean,
there's been a lot of rumors, a lot of like little things that people have found hidden in iOS 14 on tvOS 14.5 code that suggests they're renaming it to the Apple TV remote, which makes sense because my guess is most people aren't using Siri because first of all, you're with people. Second of all, you know what you want to look for. You press a couple of buttons and you get there. And yeah, it's been rumored for a little while that they're working on a new remote. It's funny, when we were doing this list, I was struck by how many things Apple has basically admitted without admitting that, hey, listen, we got it wrong and we're going to fix it. They never come out and say, this sucked. We're either scrapping it or we're changing it. But way more than they have in the past, they're basically looking at their current products, evaluating how people are using them and what their complaints are, and addressing them relatively quickly.
That sounds almost like you're talking about the butterfly keyboard.
Well, there's that. That's a big one. Yeah, they tried.
That's a very big one. Yes, a lot of people use those things, and everybody hated it. And
about 5 years, it was around 2015. The 2015 MacBook is when that launched.
Yeah,
and it quickly made its way to all of Apple's laptops, and it quickly made its way to a service program, a repair/replace program that literally covers every single butterfly keyboard that ever shipped. That's how bad it is. It's widespread. There are, even if you don't have problems with it. I've had one since 2016. I've never had an issue where I had to take it back to the Apple store. But I hate it. It's loud. It's clunky. It's
clickety. It's clickety clackety. The sound alone should turn you on.
Good. And the one that they released first with the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, and now with all of the laptops is fantastic because they went back to their old keyboard, which was great. So we had 5 years of horribleness. Now Apple once again makes the best keyboards in the business, and my best laptop keyboards in the business.
Don't you think that, the discussion we're having though sort of goes hand in hand with a company that likes to push the envelope and certainly more than most other companies takes into account the form as much as the function?
Sure.
There are going to be some misfires.
Of course. I mean, listen, everybody makes mistakes. I mean, I'm not, this is the point of this article wasn't to shame Apple. It was just to point out that, we also did a 10 best products. We didn't just bash them. The point of this is to, it's some of it is just a fun little trip down memory lane, because there are some products like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was awful. But mainly to show that, Apple, they're a couple $1 trillion company now. And most of these products, a lot of these products were released when they were on the verge of bankruptcy. The iPod was just coming out. One of the products we have is the USB puck mouse for the iMac.
Ooh,
they got it wrong.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. Oh, so that thing was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare, but the iMac saved Apple. Mouse or no. Mouse it was the first consumer mainstream USB mouse for a PC. It replaced Apple's proprietary Apple desktop bus input and brought USB. That's a big deal. The mouse was terrible. Steve Jobs loved it. And the weird reason why he loved it is, so the story goes, Steve Jobs used to like to sit cross-legged on his desk, like Indian style. I don't know what you.
Doesn't everybody do that?
What's the PC way of saying that now? I don't know.
Crisscross applesauce.
That's what my son says. You're right, crisscross applesauce. So he used to sit like that on his desk, and so his arms were like at like a weird angle, and he would hold his mouse like down. So he designed this circular mouse to fit his specific little like claw grip.
I'm trying to figure out how that looks.
It's really weird. Nobody else will do it.
Nobody can do it.
But so they designed a mouse to fit that specific instance because he's Steve Jobs. He can do that. They shipped it rather than make a one-off for him. He liked it so much that they said, you know what, we're going to ship this with the iMac because it's awesome. And granted, it does look cool. It's one of the most unique, if not the most unique mouse you've ever seen in your life. When you try to use it like a normal person, it's a nightmare. It doesn't fit in your grip because it's a circle. There's a reason why mice are teardrop shaped, because that's how you hold them. The clicking was a mess. The rolling ball was a mess. Everything was a nightmare. The cord was too short. Like everything was wrong because they made it for this one specific purpose for, the
Steve Jobs,
the king of Apple.
Well,
and they kept that mouse around for a little while.
Well, but think about it. Again, the fundamental original flaw there is it's a round mouse. You don't know which way is up. You could grab it the wrong way and start, trying to move the cursor, and it would go in the other direction.
That happened, yeah. And it was mainly it was just ergonomically uncomfortable, and that's the last thing you want when you're using a mouse. What's funny about that is we had another mouse that nearly made the list, which is the current mouse, the Magic Mouse.
Yeah.
That one, you have to flip it over to charge. And that's been the butt of many a meme and joke for Apple for years. They have this mouse that's, really nice looking and fits nicely in your hand and clicks nicely and scrolls nicely and it's optical and all. You get a warning on your Mac saying low battery. You literally have to flip it over for like a half hour. You can't use it. You're stuck. Yeah. And they refuse to put the little USB lightning cable on the back. I mean, it wouldn't look as pretty, but it's functional. Like sometimes you have to make sacrifices for function.
Yeah.
Michael, let me ask you, in your list of bad things, because I scanned it, but I may have missed this. Did you come up with any specific computers or laptops or whatever that were inherently awful?
The only computer we have is the Mac Pro, the first Mac Pro, which was
the trash can.
The trash can Mac Pro. Yeah.
What about the Cube?
It's a funny thing. We talked about the Cube. It was on the original list of like 20 products.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have, and a bunch of us had with the Cube. Yes, Apple killed it after a year. Yes, it had production issues with cracking cases. The first one
didn't look beautiful. It really looked cool.
And it was more than just looks. It was an engineering marvel.
Yeah.
Because you took, at the time, PC towers were enormous.
Yeah.
And Apple shrunk that down to a thing that not only did it fit on your desk, you wanted to put on your desk. It was gorgeous. And for the people who didn't have crack cases and didn't need a CD burner and the things that they brought out, and then they eventually and didn't need like super power because it was pretty underpowered.
Yeah,
it was a great machine. If they came out with one now, I'd buy one. With 20 years of experience to fix the production issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they did there, the concept was amazing. And I also think that even though it was a failure, with sales, I do believe it had an impact on the industry. I think it still made its mark for the time that it was. That was like what, like 2000?
2001 ish.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what's come out with Intel smaller PCs since then, I mean, that's that was the first of all of these things. I'm not saying that that Apple had this idea that other people didn't have. They certainly did, but they were able to actually build a PC that really was handheld and portable. That was a true desktop machine. It wasn't like a baby laptop, like an iBook or something. So that's why we took that off. I didn't think it was fair because we had enough positive points to say about it as negative points. The trash can Mac, on the other hand, while also impressively engineered, was so short-sighted in what the market who needed that machine. It was a mess because they needed PCI slots. They didn't get them. They needed lots of I/O ports. They didn't get them. They needed easy access to such I/O ports. They didn't get it. They needed expandability, upgradability. They didn't get it. And then Apple ignored it for like 5 years on top of that.
Well, the fact that it stayed for 5 years
Yeah.
before they finally did something with it is astonishing.
It was super cool to look at
Yeah.
and to take apart and to see on the website the fan and the way it was amazing, but just a complete nightmare for anybody who was willing to spend $3,000 on it. It wasn't viable. And that's why, once again, that's a perfect example.
Mhm.
They made that thing. They made a big deal about it. Phil Schiller got on that stage and said, quote, can't innovate anymore, my ass, because people were saying, what's going on with Apple? Why? And they were really proud of this thing. And then very quickly they realized, maybe this isn't
I
the
think
right
he answered
thing.
his own question or
Yeah.
whatever, He
So
made the point.
it was innovative for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't practical. And then out of that came the Mac Pro, which is everything that people who want to spend that kind of money on a Mac want. It's modular, it's pretty, it's powerful, and now they have a platform to work with for the next 10 years.
We got
Go ahead,
a
Julie.
kind of fun question on LinkedIn, which is kind of just like, and maybe you can give us a little bit of insight, Mike, which is basically just, by what factors and standards are we deciding what is a not good product? So I'm wondering, it kind of seems like, at least referencing that one Cube Mac, that if it was like interesting and like left its mark, like it's ultimately probably good. But what what are some things that make a product bad, I guess? At least, again, in my anecdotal experience with the Siri remote, I could not for the life of me figure out how to work it. I didn't even realize that the little top portion was a trackpad.
Yeah.
Didn't realize you could click it. Like, just none of it felt intuitive.
Yeah, that's number one, was how easy it is to use.
Mhm.
Number two is price. Number three, sales, and number four, I mean, it's subjective. For example, we put the iPod Hi-Fi on this list. There are lots of people who tweeted and emailed us and said, "Hey, I love it. I still have one. I still use it." Our problem with it was that it was too expensive. It was too heavy to be portable. The dock was flimsy, like it didn't have a nice place to rest. And there were other competing units at the time that sounded just as good and were cheaper and were more portable. And it didn't do anything to bring that product line forward. That's the big thing, is that it needs to advance the conversation. And the products that we chose, I mean, some of them were just ridiculous, like the AirPods Max carrying case. That's a new one that broke the list because we were all universally like, that is just the dumbest thing Apple has ever done, and it needs to be on that list. Some of them are just head scratchers, and that one you can't even buy separately. You have to buy the $550 headphones to get it. But for the most part, for the main products that we chose, we wanted to see, so if it had an impact, we can't call it the worst. Hence for the G4 Cube.
Right.
A lot of the laptops, there were some clunkers out there, but they all, kind of kept the conversation moving. I feel like, the USB mouse, yes, it brought USB peripheral devices to the mainstream, but you have never seen.
But at what
mouse
cost? Oh
again.
my
Right,
God.
right.
I
They
had
just
carpal
went
tunnel
away.
syndrome waiting to happen.
Seriously, I mean, and they moved away from it. They never went back, and that was that. We also have iPod socks on here. Now, people love those things too. I understand. I get it. Like no one is going to universally hate anything. People like the MacBook Butterfly keyboard. I mean, nobody
Really?
universally hates everything.
Okay.
iPod socks, in our estimation, we also took votes. There was 6 of us, but iPod socks were just absurd. They were.
I feel like
it was
this
literally
was-
a sock.
I feel like the iPod sock was also squarely in my era of like owning an iPod and owning an Apple device. And like also definitely something that would have been marketed to my age group. I mean, if they came out in 2004, I don't want to freak anyone out, but I would have been almost 9. But like, I probably had an iPod and like, I would have wanted somewhere cool to put it.
All right.
But I never had one.
I never
Yeah,
had
I
one,
mean,
and I've had a lot of Apple products, but
No,
nothing like
you
that.
never had an iPod?
I had an
I had-
iPod, but not an
I had an
iPod.
iPod, not an iPod. No, I had
Oh,
multiple
see.
iPods.
Oh, I get
I
you.
had the
Yeah.
iPod Nano, and then I had an iPod Touch, and then I had a smaller Nano.
The Nano wasn't quite. These are for the bigger iPods.
I remember my mom had the big one.
Mainly, yeah, I did too, and I'm sure Ken did also.
Yep.
So the socks were. It was literally a pouch. It was a like a knit
sock.
pouch. Yeah, like a sock. I mean, it wasn't big enough to put on as a sock unless you had really small feet. But
Me at 9.
It was a response to people were complaining because the chrome back
The fingerprints.
on the fingerprints and scratches. Like
Yeah.
immediately, as soon as you took it out of the box, it got scratched like immediately. And people were complaining because, hey, I spent $400, $300 on this thing and it scratched on day 1. So Apple said, you know what? Here, have some socks. You can pop it in there. They were like $40. You got 6 of them because they figured, I guess you wanted to change them up and maybe you lost one. It's crazy that it stayed on the market for like 6 years or something.
That's
And
why I'm
people-
surprised I
and people
never
bought
owned
them, I
one.
guess. I mean, it was just it's so nonsensical. In our Twitter comments, people were like, "Wait, is this a real product?" Because I mean, like if you didn't know they existed, it seems like
You'd think somebody was making it
like
up.
a spoof. Yeah, it's absurd. So that made the list, even though like that's a footnote in Apple's history. But it's just like, well, why? It probably cost them about $2 to make, so their profit margin on these things are probably like 80%. And people, God bless them, people bought them. If you put an Apple logo on something, someone's gonna buy it. That's just how it goes.
Fair enough.
Michael, what was the worst Apple product? Did we cover it already? Have we gotten to number 1? I'm just
We
curious.
didn't see. We talked a
You
lot
didn't give
about
it a
that.
ranking?
It was hard to
Okay.
rank them in definitiveness because like
Okay.
it's all very subjective.
Yeah.
If you ask me, if I had to pick, my worst Apple product of all time would be the Butterfly keyboard.
Yep.
Mainly because they
You
were
really hate that thing.
They were so stubborn. Everybody knew it was crap. They knew it was crap. They had a service program. They kept trying to fix it. They came out with those little things to go around the keys to keep the dust out. Then they came out with noise dampeners. Every 2 generations of MacBook, they would try to fix it. They came out with the program. If you have stuck keys, if you have repeating keys, well, fix. They knew for years that it was bad, and it was just their stubbornness of no, we can't go 2 millimeters thicker. It has to be. We're gonna keep it at this.
Well,
That's something that could have been fixed years ago.
Well, it could have been fixed, but the thing about it is too, it's the ubiquitousness. I mean, we're not talking about some ancillary accessory here. We're talking about a keyboard
It's a laptop
for the
keyboard,
professional
yeah.
level
Right.
MacBook Pros,
All of them, yeah.
or all of them actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, I mean, something that people will touch and use every single time they use a
Absolutely.
device,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's not good, and then just as you say, sticking with it for 4, 5, 6 years, however long it was.
Yeah.
Bad move. Yeah.
And the new keyboard almost makes it worse because they could have done it.
They could have done this. Yeah.
Yeah, the new keyboard is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. It's
Yeah.
quiet. It's comfortable. It doesn't get stuck. It's perfect. And it's not. It doesn't. I mean, listen. I'm not an engineer. I can handle the millimeter thickness. It's fine. But they refuse to just they had to keep that going for way too long.
We got another comment on LinkedIn, and this is also just a reminder for anyone watching live. If you have any comments, questions, if you firmly disagree, let us know in the comments or the live chat if you're watching over on YouTube. But this viewer said, and I understand, he said when there isn't a charger included in the box, I don't know if I've ever gotten an Apple product that didn't include the cord, but when I got my AirPods and the other end of it is a USB-C port to plug into, a little block. I don't have any of those. I guess I'm like still firmly stuck in whatever 2017. And I don't have any blocks with a USB-C import. And that is frustrating. I should probably just buy one, but I do wish Apple gave me one because I bought 200, however much AirPod Pros cost, a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, that's a decision they made last year. Was it last year? Ken, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was last year.
Yeah, it's been pretty recent.
Yeah, they pin it on e-waste, which there's something to be said for that. I mean, they've been giving away 50 million chargers a quarter for many years.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. There's a certain expectation when you buy a product that everything you need to use that product is in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To be fair, the chargers that they supplied previously were crap. And you can buy a really good USB-C charger on Amazon for like $15.
Yeah, I should probably just do that.
And I recommend doing that. I can send you some links if you want some recommendations.
Totally.
Juliet, when's your birthday coming up? We'll have to go in together and see if we can find one for you.
My half birthday's in July.
Okay. It's also, Apple also isn't the only company that doesn't supply chargers anymore. Like Samsung does it now too. It's a industry-wide thing, and there are good aspects to it because I can show you. I literally have a drawer with like 50 chargers in it, and I'm sure a lot of people do too. So
I don't have 50, but I've got a number of them.
Yeah, a lot. So there's an environmental impact there. That's good because most people aren't recycling these things. But there's also there's a consumer expectation when you're spending a few $100 on a product, and then all of a sudden you go home and it's half charged, and you go to charge it up, and wait, what? Where's my charger? You're looking in a drawer, you don't have it. That's a frustration, and it's not a great move. I don't think it pushes it to the level of their worst move, because we survived headphone gate just fine. I mean, there's bumpy transitions with all this stuff.
Sure.
Once you buy that USB-C charger, Juliet,
my life will be improved. Yeah.
And you won't need another one.
I think another Apple charger issue I have is constantly the lightning, like to charge, my iPhone or my AirPods, the lightning end of the charger will always fray.
Yeah, there's a bit of that.
I am like constantly nursing my chargers back to health, or just like sticking them out until they just completely fail. And then I survive. Like I go one night where I'm a little afraid that my phone will die overnight and my alarm won't wake me up. And then I immediately go buy a new one. I usually back myself into a bit of a corner with that one.
Yeah. We talked about the cables. There are issues with them. It's not necessarily unique to Apple. Cables, cheap-ish cables that are supplied with devices, they tend to fray. Apple charges too much for their cables. In general. I wouldn't recommend ever buying one from them. It's an issue. They're not great, but to put the lightning cable on the list, it speaks to a larger issue. And I think the lightning is one of Apple's best innovations. I mean, yes, it's proprietary, but it was USB-C before USB-C. It's smaller than USB-C. It's an impressive piece of technology, particularly for when it was released, which was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago at this point. So like I can't put the lightning cable on there, or we didn't want to put the lightning cable on there and
Fair
say, well,
enough.
it's really good, but you might have one
Right.
that phrase. But that is it's a common problem that you have.
And
Frame.
we got another comment, and I feel like both of you guys can definitely speak to this probably at length, which was how about Apple Maps? I know that was included
It is
in the article. So do either of you want to go in? I don't know why I've really stuck by Apple Maps while everyone else has used Google Maps for years and years. I think it's probably just because it's native on my phone. It's the easiest. I always have it available.
Yeah.
And now it's much better, but I know it hasn't always been the case.
Well, yeah, the nativeness and the always on your phone thing is okay. Now, Apple Maps now, it's still not as good as Google Maps, but it's pretty good.
It's good enough.
Yeah, it's even more than good enough. Like the maps are pretty, they're accurate, they get you where you need to go. There was a time when it first launched that Apple Maps was an unmitigated disaster. People got lost. People, the satellite images were terrible. Siri sent you to Germany. Like it was a mess.
Wasn't when it first came out, the satellite images had like melting bridges and roadways that just sort of oozed into
all
streams
that
and stuff.
It was really, really, really bad.
Which makes you wonder why would they push that out?
What made it well? Because that's the kind of thing Apple doesn't like to iterate in public, but you have to with a mapping app because you need all that data.
Yeah.
So they had to put forth something that was wonky and broken and
then fix it
and just deal with the bumps that they got, which were plentiful for several years. But now they have their own maps. Like they don't rely on another database. It was a patchwork before of all these different things. Now it's their own, at least in the US. And I think it's making its way worldwide if it hasn't already. It's getting more features. It has integration with Yelp, and there's guides, and there's flyovers, and now it's becoming really good. And if you rely on Maps as your primary or only mapping service, you're gonna get to where you need to go.
Totally.
When it launched with iOS 9, I think that you were rolling the dice. I used it and I got lost numerous times with Apple Maps where I had to go to. I would say, well, you've arrived. Like, well, where am I? Like, I'm not kidding. Like that happened. So it was a bad launch.
I do.
Another thing that they learned from though.
I do have a distinct memory of Apple Maps guiding me to my interview here. Well, when we were in Framingham, and I was totally lost. And
you never use it for something important.
No. I was not if you needed to be on time.
Panicking, but I found my way, thank God. But I was panicking.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. I mean, I honestly, I'm sure many an interviewee blamed Apple Maps for their latest. It wasn't good, and
so.
Most people didn't. Not most. There are a lot of people who use iPhones that just use what's in front of them. So they were putting people into some possibly dangerous situation. And my parents wouldn't know to download Google. Maybe they would. That's a bad example in case they're listening. But there are some people who use it who wouldn't know. Okay, I got to go to the App Store. I got to download Google Maps. I got to use that app because if I click and link, it's automatically going to go to Apple Maps. Like all of that stuff is. It's all baked into the phone, and it was all revolving around a terrible service.
Yeah. Well, are there any other products on the list, or even just that you personally, each of you have personal qualms with that you really want to get off your chest before we wrap up?
I've got one I'll throw out there real quick.
All right.
Do it.
Performa 6200 series back in 1995,
I'm sorry,
back
what year?
when dinosaurs roamed the earth, it's like that was my first Mac. Yep. And it was one of the worst ones that Apple was producing at the time. It's a wonder that I managed to stick around for a while, but it was, you really couldn't upgrade it. It was underpowered. I think it came with 4 megabytes of RAM, which tells you how far back this thing goes. And if you tried to do any upgrades and you open the case, you'd cut your fingers. It was Apple. It was just not Apple as it should be. So that's my.
We talked a lot about those kind of middling years before, both before and after Steve Jobs, basically.
Yeah.
Like the Newton, for example. Pippin was another one. Macintosh TV. There were a lot of clunkers.
Yeah.
But again, it speaks to that that influence thing, and like they came and went without anyone even noticing. And I think, I think people have to somewhat recognize, like, no one, you used the performance. I'm sure a lot of people did. It's no one knows has any idea what that is anymore. Like it had to be a product in my mind that reached a certain level of mainstreamness, like the Puck Mouse, like the iPod Hi-Fi. Like people knew about it, people wanted it, people used it, and people hated it. The Newton was one that we went back and forth on, because it's hard to say, because on one point it was way ahead of its time, paved the way for the iPhone and the iPad and everything that Apple did. On the other hand, it was pretty bad to the point where it was like on Doonesbury and The Simpsons being mocked. So it was a mainstream failure. On the other hand, like the Cube, it was way ahead of its time and really kind of showed the industry, the world, hey, these computers are one day going to be this. Maybe not this, maybe it's not ready yet, but we're going to get there. And then Steve Jobs came around and showed him how it's done.
And there you have it. Well, thank you both so much. This was really fun. And I hope that if any of our viewers didn't get to air their grievances while we were live, feel free to do so in the comments or chat. I'm not Apple, my feelings will get hurt. But, let us know, give us a thoughtful argument, why you disagree with us, why you agree with us, if you have any other products to throw in. And thank you both so much for calling in and joining me today.
Sure.
Thanks.
And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're on LinkedIn, you can like it over there, but please do move over to our YouTube channel. We are IGG Tech Talk. Our live videos are also always live there, so you can subscribe to the channel there and hit the bell icon in the corner so you're notified every single time we post a new video. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.